Tell me a little bit about the foundation.
The foundation was started last year. I started this foundation as a way to gather funds and disperse them to the community. But realistically, I also started it to fund our youth program, which used to be a nonprofit and an LLC. And I was just like, nah, let's just aim bigger picture here. And let's fund this organization. And then in the future, as I amass wealth through music, when it comes time to transition, I could put some of my money into that, and that'll help mentor programs all over the country, maybe even the world. We'll see.
So you're thinking big with this?
Yes.
But it's not a nonprofit, or it is a nonprofit?
Peer Tribe Foundation is a nonprofit. Ascending Flow is a program of Peer Tribe Foundation.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And then tell me a little bit about what you guys do.
So Ascending Flow is a mentoring program. We mainly focus on artistic expression as a way to connect with youth, to help them express their emotions. But really, we're a peer support program. So the music is kind of a way to get them in the door, help find their artistic expression, whether it's drawing, creating music, whatever it may be, videography. But really, we're like, okay, now what's going on in your life, you know? So we help with academics, we help with getting them into housing, we help with just basic necessities, life skills. And really, we do it in a way that's fun and interactive, you know? Like, anytime there's an event going on in the community, we'll organize them to go check it out. Or say a youth comes into our program and they don't really know what they want to do, then for the first couple months, we're just going to have them come to different events to see if something clicks for them.
So how does a youth get involved with your program?
The referrals through partnerships. I'm also like a known musician, so I make posts and have a lot of connections to the community. I know a lot of families in the community, so I just kind of put the word out there and let it spread. And then another way is that we do paid workshops. So we pay the youth to learn things. So for instance, we just had a mural workshop where they muraled up the old Free Hole building on Cully and in the Cully neighborhood on 42nd and Killingsworth, and we paid them to actually learn how to mural that place up. Other examples is I did a paid workshop for youth to learn how to make a song, and we have a couple music videos on our website that show like them creating that music video.
Cool. Mm-hmm. What made you get into this work?
I grew up as an immigrant here. I was born in the Philippines, and I grew up in a very abusive home, and my mom didn't know how to speak English, and there was just a lot of disconnect with like proper guidance. Like, she couldn't be there for me because she was working 3 jobs, and I just got caught up in the streets as a youth. I had a lot of behaviors that kind of like showed me reaching for acceptance and validation, which made me get into criminalistic activities as a youth.
Can we dive into that? What does that mean? You're saying looking for acceptance, looking for, that's kind of what
I didn't find love at home. I found a lot of pain there, so I went into where I could find it, and even though, you know, the groups that I was kicking it with were doing bad things and things that can get us caught up or get me caught up in jail, I found it as a way of being free and accepted. And, you know, as a youth, I got into a lot of trouble, getting into fights. I found like a joy in getting attention through getting in trouble, stealing cars, doing drugs, you know, all those things that come with, I guess, being a teen. It was normal for me, but growing up, I realized that that wasn't really like the normal for most people, you know, so.
What did that lead to eventually?
For me, I got incarcerated, went to jail as a youth, juvie. It started with juvie, and then it started getting on, I was on probation, and then once I was on probation, it was kind of like a cycle after that, because once you're on paper, it's kind of hard to get off that. And also my environment wasn't really a good environment for me to flourish and thrive in, even if I wanted to make changes. I was always moving, I was homeless, I didn't have stability, And I guess the only consistent thing for me was going to jail or going in and out of systems and programs as a youth.
How long did that time frame last in your life?
Man, I think I started kicking up dust at like 8 years old.
Wow,
and then,
that's young.
Yeah. That's when I started really like acting out. But it makes sense because during that time there was a lot of abuse happening and there was a lot of moving around. And then that lasted until my prison sentence when I was 19. They sent me to prison. Yeah, a lot going on in the back. Shut the fuck up. Yeah, motherfuckers. You ever just say, motherfuckers? You say that?
Sorry, this happens every once in a while. Newsrooms can be a loud place.
Yeah, I bet.
So you were talking about the sentence at 19. But
Yeah, I got sentenced for a robbery charge, and oh yeah, you were gonna say something.
Can you rewind a little bit, so kind of play out the sequence of events? Things started to, you said kicking up dust when you were 8 years old. What did that look like? I imagine in stuff in school?
Yeah, in school, getting into fights, really acting out in my behavior, not listening to what my mom wanted for me. Because my mom was probably the most consistent thing in my life, but me and her had like a lot of incidents where we got into altercations, and it eventually got to the point where she kicked me out of the house. And
how old were you?
I was 13 at the time. So 8 to 13 was like a lot of instability, a lot of situations, a lot of getting into trouble, getting suspended from school. And then I got expelled from school. And a lot of my friends were gang affiliated. And that's kind of like where I kind of got my acceptance from. And what comes with that is a lot of drugs, a lot of altercations, and going to jail became like almost like a proud thing to me, you know?
Where'd you go at 13?
I was in Klamath Falls at the time, so I lived in Southern Oregon, and I was in and out of jail until they sent me up to Portland when I was 15.
When your mom kicked you out at 13, where'd you go?
To the homies' houses, you know, just staying on couches.
And then when was your first juvie interaction?
13 years old too. Yeah.
How long was that?
Just a couple days, but I ended up going to jail a lot after that.
What was the longest time you served in youth?
Probably like 3 months. I never went to correctional facility, you know. I was always just in
the county stuff.
The county stuff. It wasn't until I went to prison that I did a long stint.
And how long did you say that was?
I did 2 years.
At 19?
Yeah, and got out when I was 21.
What made you change?
A couple of things. I actually started changing in prison. And I started deciding to work on myself when I was locked up when my mom got cancer, because though my time here in America has been really like, you know, a struggle, there was always this sense of like, you have a family in the Philippines you got to provide for. And I went back multiple times to the Philippines, which kind of opened my eyes to the silver lining of like, the poverty is just way different there than it is here. And those are my roots, you know. Those are my family. That's my people. So that was always in the back of my mind when I was making these decisions. And when I was in prison, once my mom got cancer, it really kind of like woke me up and made me want to change and make the decision to start working on myself. So started reading like religious books, started gravitating towards people that were talking more positive. I started finishing classes in there. And then when it was getting closer to my release date, I was really scared of getting released because I was so used to like the schedule, you know what I mean? Like wake up at this time, go to work, this is when this class is, that's when that class is. I like had a program when I was in there that I liked, you know. And getting out, I knew that once I got out, I was going to be faced with the biggest challenge, and that's navigating felonies, navigating, you know, where am I going to stay at? My whole family was in the Philippines at this time. I had nowhere to go. I paroled to the Shoreline, which is downtown Portland, and you're surrounded by people who don't have anywhere to go. They got multiple felony charges and different violent crimes and drug-related crimes.
Is that a halfway house?
Yeah. I went to halfway house, so I was like, man, I'm gonna end up back in prison. You know, there's a high chance that I'll get into an altercation with somebody, or something's gonna go sideways. So before I was released, I had the heart to change my life. I had like actions that were in place, but what really helped me continue the change were mentoring programs when I got out.
Can you name some of those?
Yeah. So when I got, actually, even when I was locked up, there were mentors that kind of stayed connected with me through outside in, because I was a homeless youth at outside in before I got locked up. And when I got out, I was at the halfway house, and then they got me through transitional housing. I started kind of like taking advantage of the resources, because I always knew about them, but I never really like used them. But I started like going to Free Geek. I got myself a laptop, started learning how to make beats. And then, you know, another organization called OTF, Outside the Frame, they really made a really huge impact on me. They put a camera in my hands, and that's where I learned. They said, hey, just tell your story. I said, what? Like, my self-worth is low. I think I'm gonna go back to prison eventually. I was struggling with mental health. I was trying to get away from, you know, just gang culture in general. So I was trying to like I was really solo when I first got out. And it was hard for me to believe in myself. So when they put a camera in my hands and they're like, hey, tell your story, I'm like, my story matters? Like, for real? Like, I didn't want to believe that. And then they started paying me to learn it. And I'm like, oh, hell yeah, I need money, you know what I mean? So through that process, I recorded my first music video. I performed for the first time in front of 600 people at the Armory Theater. It was at one of their galas. They have an annual gala. And ever since then, I've been on their board. I've been hired by them, and they've inspired me to start my own organization that focuses on creativity. So I'd like to say that mentorship and the people in these organizations were a huge reason why I'm successful today, or really why I believe in myself today.
Were any of those stopgap measures in place through when you were getting in trouble in school, when you became homeless when you were younger? Do you remember some of those services that could have helped or tried to help? Or
no, there wasn't a lot. In Southern Oregon, there wasn't a lot. There's religious groups, but I wasn't vibing with that. And this is in part due to like bad experiences in churches and organized religion. So when in Portland, there was organizations there, but none of them really focused on creativity. So even though, like, as a homeless youth, I went to housing, or I went to go get my food or this or that, it was very easy for me to feel disconnected from those services and just use them as kind of like a basic needs type of thing. It was only organizations like OTF that really made an impact on my self-worth, made me believe in myself. And I think that's when I started healing, honestly.
Were any of those services connecting you to your roots or helping you connect to your roots?
No, I think they helped me stay alive long enough to connect with my roots.
How did that process come about? It sounds like you have since started.
Oh
to
yeah,
do that.
for sure. That's so. When I was in prison, that's something that I always like. Even before prison, I've always had Filipino pride, but it wasn't until I got out that I met a group of people that taught me the true history of the Philippines and the colonialism and the impacts of colonialism and why, like, our people are so divided and so have like a really long struggle of immigration and sending money back home, you know? So I was starting to learn like the beauty of our culture, our tattoos, our gold, our warrior history, like our belief system in nature and our ancestors and creator. Like we had like and we had our own language too, like our own alphabet system. So once I started learning these things, it sparked a fire in me. You know, I would like to say OTF, a mentoring program, helped me express myself and make me believe in myself so I wouldn't off myself during that time. But the cultural, like learning my cultural history really like made me who I am today. And I'd like to think that I know I'm an inspiration to a lot of people right now, especially the kids, which is a good feeling.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about your musical career now.
Yeah, I've been rapping since a homeless youth. I started rapping downtown Portland for money. I had a sign that said my girl at the time was pregnant and we're just trying to get something to eat. And some dude walked past me, really nice clothes on, you know, button up, all that. I knew he had money. And I heard the change in his pocket and he just walked past me. And this whole time, like, I was like writing a little bit. I spit a couple bars to the homies and whatnot, but I never really rapped in front of a lot of people like that. So that made me really mad. And I went downtown and I just closed my eyes, hands shaking, started beating my chest, and I just closed my eyes and started rapping. And when I opened my eyes, there was hella people around me giving me money. So I started just cultivating my craft through rapping on the streets. And it's always stayed with me. When I went to prison, I'd start rapping more. Anywhere I went, I always found something to hit and just start rapping, whether I was on the bus or in jail or, you know, anywhere. I would find a way to rap. And when I got out of prison and I had access to resources, I was able to actually, like, you know, cultivate my craft and actually record it. And I just kept going at it, you know. I think it was 2022 is when I blew up on TikTok, and that just got millions of views and just changed my life after that. And I just been going viral ever since, like every year.
What's your music about?
Mainly decolonizing. I rap a lot about reminding my culture of our strength. Whether it's a salute to the babae energy, which is woman energy, or lalaki energy, which is, I'm mainly more of like a masculine rapper, but women have raised me. Even most of my mentors are women. I have like one male mentor that played chess with me every now and then. He was some white dude that was so real with me. He's like, hey man, I've never been homeless. I don't really relate to you, but I'm here to talk. I'm like, hell yeah, bro. I like that because he was being authentic with me. He wasn't pretending to know what I was going through, you know. But most the women in my life raised me up, and maybe it's because when I was growing up, I fought a lot of my mom's boyfriends. I was always, they were inconsistent. My mom was the only person that was my mom was the only person that was consistent to me. So I think I was looking for that in mentors.
You're a father now?
Yeah, 2 kids. Yep, daughter and a son, 3 years old and 3 months old.
Cool.
I'm in the thick of it, trying to sleep when I can.
What would you tell them as like some of the main lessons that you've learned throughout this journey? What would you tell them to make sure that they don't fall into some of the, you know, patterns that you had when you were younger?
I think right now, especially with my 3-year-old, my 3-month-old is just like wobbly headed, so I'm not really concerned with her that much. Her temperament is super chill as compared to my son. My son reminds me of me. He has a lot of aggression. I'm like, for no reason. Like, you didn't even go through the trauma I went through and you're already mad. And I'm like, oh, DNA stuff, okay. So a lot of my focus with him is to help him build self-confidence, because that's something that I lacked. And I think if he is self-confident, he just won a medal yesterday at soccer. And this whole time in soccer, he's 3 years old, by the way. It's like, it's not that serious, right? But during the soccer game, I was serious on him. I was like, you got to get the goal. You got to do this. And then yesterday, I just like stopped all of it. And I was just have fun, you know? And he had more fun than he ever had. And he just won a medal yesterday too. So his confidence started boosting up. And I think those are the moments that I want to lean into with my children. Is kind of like, whether I'm here or not, that you can believe in yourself and you're worth it. And I think for me, that's kind of like where I went into the dark side, is I didn't believe I was worth it. I've tried to commit suicide like 3 times already. You know what I mean? Bridge, gun to the face. Like I used to beat myself up physically and get into altercations with people. And looking back at it, I'm like, damn, that was really, really stupid to cause yourself damage like that. Or, but I understand why I had a lot of self-harm and self-doubt, because my confidence was really low and my self-worth was low. And it wasn't my fault, you know, but it was my responsibility to heal and change. And I think that's what I would like to leave with anybody who's tuning into this, is like, yeah, you need a mentor. Yeah, like these programs are essential, but also that if you don't have access to these services, you're worth it, you know. Sometimes we need that though. I think without the mentoring services, it's hard to see those positive outcomes.
What do you see changing in the youth of today, or is it the same as when you were growing up? What do you see as you're working with youth today? What do you see as some of the big problems or the big strengths? I
think it ebb and flows. I think there were times in my youth where it was really bad in terms of drugs, violence, all that. And then, you know, it got better and then it got worse, you know? And I think I see the same thing with the youth. And there's a lot of things that impact that. COVID was crazy. COVID was wild because it just cut off all services, right? So I buried a lot of youth. That's to drug overdose or gang violence.
Kids that you've worked with?
Yeah, kids I worked with. I buried a lot of youth. So this happens when programs don't get funded properly, or, you know, even to this day, it's still hard to maintain funding, especially under this current administration. But during COVID, it was the worst, for sure. What was your question again?
Just what you see as some of the biggest obstacles or challenges that youth are dealing with today, and then what are some of the strengths as compared to, you know, maybe when you were growing up?
I think a lot of the challenges I see that's happening in the youth today, and also a strength, is they have access to a lot of information instantly. And social media is so much like, it actually makes the self-worth lower from what I'm seeing, you know? And a lot of kids find their validation from that world and that, you know, but also on the flip side, they have access to all this information too. They could use it, you know what I mean? And I think the characteristics of what I was growing up with, gangs, drugs, you know, not having like a proper understanding of healthy relationships and boundaries, they're still the same, you know. They're still, they look a little different. It might look a little intense, but the characteristics are still the same to me, you know. And I think mentorship is like the only solution to helping a youth that is disconnected, that comes from an abusive household, to help prevent them from either going into the system or helping them when they get out have a place to kind of heal and get some guidance.
I kind of think of, you know, people's lives when I hear their stories. When I think about my story, there's usually a few pivotal moments in your life that change the course of your life. Can you highlight any of those? Like, I know a lot of people that talk about justice involvement. There's a moment where you make a decision where you could have gone right and you went left instead. Do you remember any of those moments, and then the moments when you decided, I'm changing the course of this?
Yeah, the moment that I mentioned with my mom getting cancer, that was one. And then
Can you describe that moment to me and what that mental process was for you?
Yeah, so once I found out my mom had cancer.
Were you in prison at the time?
Yeah, I
right?
was in prison at the time. I was at Snake River, and my mom came to see me, and her hair was falling off, and it just fucking tore me apart, man. I know you gotta beep that out, but it just messed me up, you know, like just to see her hair coming off. Because in our culture, long hair is like, it's beautiful, it's strong, especially on women, right? So I seen this person that was so strong, someone I got into fights with. Like in our culture, it's okay to hit your kids, you know what I mean? I got beat up by this woman, you know? And to see her so weak and fragile made me like reflect on what I was doing in my life, because I couldn't be there for her in that moment. I was like, how am I gonna be there for her if I'm locked up trying to be a gang member and trying to do all this, you know, robbing fools and living a life that is like a cycle that's just in and out of jail. Like how am I gonna be there for her if I'm in here? So I think that was a really big pivotal moment for me. That was kind of like the spark of change right there.
How did that end up? Were you able to be there for her?
Yeah, I'm there. She's living with me right now.
Nice. Cool.
It was a long time
Good to hear
coming,
that.
but yeah, I think
She's doing well now?
cancer's back. But the most important thing is that I'm here through it this time. You know, I think that moment in my life was a spark of change, but what helped cultivate the flame was the mentoring programs that were there when she wasn't there. I had to do a lot of work without her. Like when I got out of prison, I stayed away from my family, my siblings. Almost for 10 years, I stayed away from them because all I knew was when I was around people I love, I fucked it up, or I made it worse for them, or something bad would happen, or I'd cause them stress. So I stayed away from them for a long time, and I just worked on myself. A lot of ups and downs through that process, for sure.
What was the reunion like once you were able to go back to them? And
She started saying she was proud of me when I started getting on the news more often. I graduated with my certification in music for PCC. I started my own youth program and mentoring program. My music started blowing up. I rapped with my idol, you know what I mean? I think throughout these accomplishments, we started like cultivating our relationship and reconnecting, because I made it safe for her to reconnect with me.
what about some of the pivotal moments that changed you into the negative side of things? Do you remember like that moment where you made a decision that affected, you know, a good period of your life?
I think I seen my stepdad with a gun to his head one day, and I think that made me not want to be at home anymore. I think it was around 13. 8 years old is kind of like, there was a lot of abuse in the house. I remember fighting my stepdad, a different stepdad, was fighting, beating up my mom, and I jumped in and I like took the blows and tried to push him back, but he was stronger than me at the time. So I think a lot of it came from abuse, and just made me like lean into more of the negative things. I feel like I found my worth in doing bad stuff, you know? If I broke a window, I'd be like, hell yeah, you know what I mean? And if I stole from a store, it became more like a game. And then when I got caught, I was like, at least I'm getting attention here, you know? So it kind of became a normal kind of like behavior for me. And I think a lot of kids relate to that, relate to, you know, if I'm not gonna be praised in a positive environment, or if I'm not gonna be loved here, then I'll be accepted doing this. If they call me bad, I might as well act what, you know, they label me as, you know? So it's really rooted in like no hope, low self-esteem. But I think we can change that as a community too, you know? As a community, especially if you got some money. Like if you fund it, we can hire people to do it. And I think in our field of work, the most important thing for me as someone who's been through it, went through it, survived it, and then created a program, is hiring the kids that are going through it right now and training them to be the next ones. Like
paying them money to be there, giving them that incentive. What kind of a role does that play?
Paying them to come to workshops?
Yeah, and stuff like that. I mean, I imagine that's a big motivator.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, some kids will come just for the fact that they're getting free recording time, or they're interested in an arts and crafts program or whatever, you know. But the money definitely helps as a motivator, especially for youth that are teens. Like, they want Subway, you know. They want some food. They got to be able to afford it, you know.
What kinds of things have you seen as you're mentoring, anecdotally, the stories that you've seen, the lives that have changed? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I've seen youth. We used to work with foster care youth, and we actually ended up hiring one of the youth to be a mentor. So they came, you know, youth that have been through 12, 13 placements, have been abused as a kid, sexually abused, all that, and we ended up hiring them to actually be a mentor. And I've seen this a couple times where youth I've had a long mentor relationship with them, and then an opportunity comes up where we're able to hire them. We actually have a program starting with OHA called Amplify and Thrive, where we're gonna hire youth within the school district, so they don't have to work at Subway or Taco Bell after school. They work while they're at school being a peer to their peers, and they're getting paid $25 an hour at 16 years old. Like, that's crazy. I wish I could join that.
So it creates those ripples, right? Once you mentor them, they mentor someone else, it keeps going on.
Yeah, and it takes money though, like to pay them this much, but it counts for college credits. They get to use it for college, you know. They'll be the future therapists and counselors or future executive directors of their generation, you know. But it's these youth that, the idea is that they're the best mentors to their peers. Like, we're older, yeah, we can, but I can't stay hip to all the slang, you know. They're gonna be able to connect with them better than me.
What are kids needing in society that they're not getting right now?
A lot of empathy. I think that there's a big disconnect with older generations and younger generations, and I think empathy is the connector to that, and letting them, you know, lead the way. Yeah, that's what I've seen the most. And in this last workshop that we did, we asked the youth that were involved in the program, like, what type of song do you want to make? And what's the topic? And they both said expectations. That expectations are the thing that really make them feel like there's a lot of weight on their shoulders. And maybe it's the current education system. Maybe, you know, right now we have a big, high statistic number in youth not going to school. Why is that? Why aren't youth participating in school right now, you know? So.
Why is it?
Well.
What are you hearing from them?
Mainly the system of school. Just like there's not a lot of teachers are at full capacity, you know, they don't have a lot of time to connect with the youth. The disciplinary system is not, it's similar to jail, you know. So we have to approach it differently. And I think programs like OTF and Ascending Flow and a lot of mentoring programs, they approach it in a way where they look at, like, really prioritize empathy. Like, what's going on? What's the reason? You know, and still holding them to, like, what do you want? You know, do you want to do this? Okay, you don't want to go to school. Well, how about a GED? Oh, you don't want a GED? How about a trade? So there's someone kind of like navigating alternatives when school isn't working. And I think that's what we're hearing from youth is, like, it's mainly like it's rooted in not having the self-confidence, but I think with mentors coming in and being like, hey, there's other ways to do that. I remember when I was feeling that way. I remember when I made that decision, and you're right, this system sucks, and, like, there's also another opportunity over here if you don't want to go that route. But don't give up. Don't just quit. Don't don't make a bad decision that'll affect you for the rest of your life, because you don't need to, you know. So I think sometimes we need to hear that and have a space to, you know, explore those decisions.
Oregon has a really high rate of justice-involved youth, one of the highest nationwide. I think we're third nationwide per capita, or like third from the last in terms of how much we. Anyway, that didn't make a lot of sense. But Oregon has.
You can edit though. That's the cool thing.
It is, yeah. Oregon has a high rate of justice-involved youth. What do you think some of the primary reasons are for that, specifically to this state? Someone who's gone through that.
Justice-involved youth, highest rate. I think it's the same thing. It's like you're not. This state is not prioritizing funding peer support programs. And it's a combination of, like, there's the drugs, there's gang culture, there's a lot of instability in the homes, mental health services. There's like a holistic way to view this, but I think from my experience, peer mentorship programs is a way to be kind of that solution, because in our line of work, we also end up mentoring the parents too. We end up kind of like being a liaison between what's going on in the house as well. But yeah, I think things are getting worse for sure. And they're gonna continue to get worse if we don't kind of change how we focus on healing as a community. And if we don't prioritize the youth, that youth is gonna end up could hurt you at some point, honestly, you know? I ended up hurting people. Random strangers, you know, that didn't deserve it. They didn't, you know, and looking back, I think it's important to approach each youth in our state, in Oregon, or even the whole country, even the whole world, like really approach them in a way that they're hurting our community because we're hurting them. And that's just what it is. So we got to start at the roots and provide opportunities and a space for them to heal.
Anything else you would add that we haven't covered?
Should I shout out my organization?
Yeah, I mean, we will name the organization.
Okay.
We're going to talk about what you guys do, and then obviously we're looking at coming and showing some of what you do.
Okay,
so
okay.
I think that, you know, that soundbite, if you want to give it, we might use context from it, but I probably wouldn't. Like,
okay, because
you're
you're showing it
yeah,
already.
Exactly,
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
But yeah,
What else would I
you're welcome
say?
to think a little bit about if there's something else. And Patty, do you have any questions?
You have just said so many things. Like you got right to the point. There's so many things that I haven't heard anyone really say so clearly.
Okay.
You really come through in this
Okay.
interview. So usually
Thanks.
I have a question, but what I'm telling you is the highest compliment. I don't, because you
Nice.
said it.
Sick. Thank you, Patty.
Yeah.
It means a lot to me.
I guess one thing we touched on but didn't dive super deep into, and I don't know if you want to like bring this up again, is the importance of culturally specific programs, right? Somebody who can bring you and understand the identity roles and the lack thereof, especially in Oregon being such a white state, with justice-involved youth being disproportionately, you know, people of color are impacted by the justice system in general across the nation, but Oregon even higher so. And so if you can speak to maybe as a person who connected with their culture, what that means to you and how you're able to work with youth on that.
I think it's important to, I mean, in East Portland, this is our focus, East Portland. High crime rate, super violent, lack of resources, right? You see programs kind of like working on getting into that area, 102nd, 122nd, you know, but past 122nd, you start going on to 148th, 162nd, it gets a little nutty. It gets a little wild up there. Everything's getting pushed back. And I don't want to go into like the reasons why, like, because I know a little bit of like programs or organizations that have tried to do good, but it ended up backfiring and it ended up, you know, hurting and fueling the gentrification. But I think that a lot of these programs that are focused on peer support and peer mentorship, that they need to be funded properly. Can you reiterate your question
Yeah,
again? Sorry,
I guess my
losing
question
it.
is focused on
Cultural.
the
Okay,
importance
okay.
of people understanding where they come from and getting help.
Yeah. So
that.
what I was saying is that as it's moving back, a lot of gentrification is pushing people out to East Portland. There's a lot of people that are BIPOC or Black, Brown, Vietnamese, you know, all these different cultures. And I think that's a big reason like why I started my foundation to be a BIPOC focused organization, where the money that we would raise would disperse to leaders that focus on their communities. Because if you come from jail, you can speak the lingo. If you're a Filipino, you could speak Filipino. You know what I mean? You got different mannerisms. You know to take the shoes off in the house. You know when someone says "Halika na dito," you're gonna be like, "Oh yeah, what's up?" You know, you can understand the language a little bit better and some of the customs. And I think it's important to continue to fuel these programs that adapt to each culture's needs, and for the youth too. I think it's important, even white youth, to know that you have indigenous roots too. Like that everyone has some sort of indigenous roots, and if you go back to that, you can understand where you came from. You can understand why you're here today, what genealogy and what struggle you had to go through to get here. And I think that the more you understand that, the more you could have a sense of self. And even if the sense of self is like, oh man, my people like colonized these people, or like for instance, I'm Visayan. My Visayan, we used to be a big empire and we used to colonize people too. Like we fought the Chinese, we fought the Tagalogs, the Moros, like we also fought and did bad things too. But I think the more that you understand your past, the more that you can remember your strength. And that's a part of it. I think that's a part of thriving, is remembering that. And I think a part of, like you were asking me about why youth are in jail and why it's increased. I think that's one aspect of it is that people don't have a connection to their history. And if you go to school, you get taught a different history. Natives are like, what the heck? Like, that's not our history. Filipinos you don't even get taught about the Filipino-American War. I learned that from a group of friends, and it's on YouTube, you know? So there's ways, I think the schooling system is another aspect of it, but alternative programs, mentoring programs, these are spaces for you to actually explore that stuff. And the more that we focus on culturally specific leaders and organizations and programs, and you always include some sort of angle of like them expressing their emotions, I think it's a good way to do it.
Why was expressing your emotions so important?
Oh man, you bottle up. When I wasn't expressing my emotions, I blew up. I had no guidance on understanding why I was mad. I had no guidance on understanding why I kept doing the same things over and over again. And looking back, if I was just to look at a timeline of my life, I continually made the same decisions over and over again that caused more pain, that caused more struggle for myself. And it wasn't elevating me, it wasn't progressing me, it wasn't helping me become more happy as a person. And I think the expression piece allows you to let this out. Even if there's no solution, you're letting out this cycle, you're expressing it, and it's having a flow. And with that flow, you can have like more space to understand yourself. And maybe it might take a while, you know? Say for instance, you're an artist. Like for me, I started rapping as a homeless youth. I was rapping about my struggle the whole time. But was it actually progressing me and helping my life get better? Not really. It was helping me survive. But I think without that expression, I would have been dead a long time ago. I would have shot myself. I would have gotten in an altercation that would have been violent. or I would have made even worse. I was actually planning on doing some worse stuff before they locked me up. I probably would have been in prison way longer, probably for the rest of my life with what I was planning to do. So I think that expression piece is really important, but there comes a time where expression is used for survival, and then it's used to actually like progress, you know? Yeah, survival is just kind of like, you just like, but progression is like, boom, now you're elevated. And that's where I live now, is kind of like everything that I envision, I do. If I envision about rapping with somebody, it happens. If I like want to see something for my kids, it happens. Like I just envision and make it happen. And I'm like really happy right now in my life. My mom's living in my house, you know what I mean? So I feel like living in that space of being so confident in yourself and knowing that you have a community of people around you that want to see you thrive, and you're also expressing yourself through all this and giving back, I think that's a good way to be, in a good place to be in life, you know? And I want that for everybody. Hopefully, a lot of youth that are seeing this, or parents that have youth that are making bad choices, that you see this segment and have a little bit of hope, and also connect them with our program. Ascending Flow is what it's called. 89th and Stark, Southeast.
So parents can just say, hey, my youth's going through something, can I send them to you, and you can make that happen?
Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent,
You're like, we got limited resources.
We have limited resources and only so many mentors, but you know, I think the more youth that sign up for our program, it shows the need. And for those that got a lot of money, like, you can donate to our program. Or if you're a foundation, like a lot of the way that we've got money is through private foundations and grants. We want there to be contracts though, but it's hard because everybody's hurting right now.
Yeah.
The school system's hurting. I mean, everybody, not even nonprofits. Like, I think everyone's hurting in some way.